Hello, Sean here, Mountains Garage. On the same snowy Sunday afternoon that I just shot the previous video in, I had a thought, and I'm just gonna let this one ramble. It's a storytelling video, and the title, as you saw, is Details. Regardless of your profession, you might be the person that the burden of the details falls upon. You know what I mean? You got maybe the customer who wants something, you have a boss or somebody in charge that wants to provide that service and wants you to handle it, and eventually the details of the actual carrying out whatever the need of the customer is falls on you, and you have to be correct, or everybody looks bad, people are going to be upset. And this happens on at least a daily basis, if not an hourly basis, depending on your profession. If you're a mechanic, it's your day. That's what it's all about. If you're a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, anybody who has to coordinate anything knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's all in the details. What is the expression? The devil is in the details. And that can mean things can go right or things can go wrong. So I heard a story a long time ago, and it stuck with me my entire life. And every time I get frustrated because I have to be the detail man, sometimes I get to go help somebody else on their project and they have to handle the details and you're just there to rip and thrash. That's awesome. But most of the time, this really hits home with me because this poor guy in this story was the detail man, and boy, did he sweat it out. Here we go. I don't think I've ever told a story that had nothing to do with me. This happened before I was born. It's just a really interesting story. So I'll be Paul Harvey and tell you the rest of the story, if you know who that is. Walt Disney, we all know and love him. He was definitely a man with an imagination. And in the mid-50s, he opened Disneyland in California, and he wasn't happy with Tomorrowland. He thought it wasn't futuristic enough. He loved trains. And he and his Imagineers dreamed up the monorail. Walt and his wife were actually in Germany, and they saw a monorail. And they stopped and talked to the company. That company ended up getting involved in the whole monorail project. So, Walt wanted one for Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and he pretty much told everybody it would debut in 1959. So he put one of his best Imagineers, Bob Durr, D-U-R-R, it's just a simple name to remember, in charge of the project. And the project commenced. They had to figure out how to make it. They originally were going to have the German company make it. They convinced the Disney engineers if they could make the other train systems they have, they could build the monorail too. And it's funny, the original cement columns, whoever did the details on those, they're still standing. Perfect shape, still functional. They did that right. They got the details right on that. But the original monorail, Bob Durr and one German engineer were having a lot of trouble getting it to work. Meanwhile, Walt Disney had handwritten a letter to then Vice President Richard Nixon, inviting him and his family to the ribbon-cutting ceremony on a random Sunday in June. There's only 4 probably Sundays in June. I can't tell you the date, but I remember it being June and on a Sunday. Leading up to that, up to the Saturday before that, the monorail track was only a mile around. They had a train station built, and of course it's elevated. You've probably seen pictures of it or been to either Disneyland or World and ridden the monorail, maybe. I just did it last year. It would not make it around the 1 mile loop. The Saturday before the ribbon cutting ceremony, up until dark, the drive motors, being electric, weren't up to the task. They kept catching fire and all other kinds of problems. They had to tow it back every time. at dark, the Saturday before the ribbon cutting ceremony, it made one loop. Its only loop it had ever made. But the next day, Walt Disney had television cameras scheduled to be there for the ribbon cutting and some photo opportunities with then Vice President Richard Nixon and his family. So all Bob Durr had to do, being the only one that's ever driven it, was to drive it up to the station with the cameras on, and then they'd do their, pomp and circumstance, and that would be it. So he figured he could accomplish that. So it actually happened. It was finally the big day. The press is there. Richard Nixon and his family, I guess he has daughters back then. Well, I'm sure he still does. Or, you know what I mean? We're talking to the 50s. Had his whole family. And the ribbon cutting ceremony, somebody really dropped the details there because the scissors they were going to cut, the big cartoon looking scissors weren't sharp enough to cut the ribbon. Walt Disney ripped it with his hands and they laughed and everything was fine. And then they were taking some pictures while the cameras were rolling and they walked inside it and Richard Nixon's daughters say, "Can we go for a ride?" Richard Nixon looked at Walt Disney. Walt Disney said, "Bob, let's go." So they shut the doors and took off. Bob Dorr, the detail guy, is sweating. How embarrassing is it going to be when it breaks down, catches fire with the vice president on board, and oh, by the way, they didn't let the Secret Service in. They left him standing back there. They weren't expecting him to go anywhere. The detail was just take pictures. It wasn't going to move. He was sweating bullets, but he made a lap, and it made it back to the station. As it's closing in on the station and the Secret Service are freaking out and trying to jump on the train and get on board, the daughters ask if we can go around again, and Walt says, "Take it around again." And that they did. And it made 2 laps. It didn't catch fire. Everybody laughed, and the poor detail guy, Bob, told this story because it is a day he'll never forget. So it's a pretty cool story. Again, it happened before I was ever born. And it's just an amazing story about the poor guy stuck with the details. Because if that had failed, it would have, you know how they say it flows downhill? In that case, it would have flown both directions. It would have been very embarrassing. And big news back then, Walt Disney had spent a lot of money on Disneyland. So much, in fact, that when it originally opened, they allowed outside companies like Kodak and other places to have, buildings with their name on it. And he didn't own it all yet. It was after his death before they got that all under control. As we all know, they've turned out pretty well. So anyway, that's my story. Hope you got something out of it. Completely, kind of mechanical, but not much. I know most people come here to talk about mechanical things. Well, next time you're sweating it because you're the detail guy, just remember that story and hope it turns out okay.